Good evening. I'm going to embarrass some people tonight, and it's for a good reason. You'll turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Now I've got everybody on their seats. See, I know how to hook the audience in here. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, if you would. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. This is something that's been on my mind since I did the lesson on doing the small things and the idea of just a cup of cold water. And I wanted us to examine what those cups of cold water look like. And ultimately, when you try to examine what do we mean by just a cup of cold water, what do we mean when we expand that idea out? And I think what we find is as we try to define that, then you start talking about how to truly serve in the church. I think sometimes we have a problem where we think the only way to serve is, say, you're praying or song leading or leading the Lord's Supper thoughts, or you're preaching. So maybe serving is leading parts of the worship. Or maybe it's teaching a Bible class. Or it's having a position, being an elder or deacon. We seem to think that this is the way that people serve in the church. And now, here's the funny thing. When you ask people, are these three ways the only ways to serve in the church? What's people's automatic answer? Of course not. Of course, that's not the only way to serve. But then they turn around and act as though they don't have a service to render. And so when we start examining what true service looks like, which, by the way, for a reminder, the idea of the cups of cold water comes from Matthew 10, verse 42. Just a cup of cold water given in my name. And when you give that cup of cold water, you will not lose your reward. And so I wanted us to stop and think this evening about some ideas of what these cups of cold water look like. And I want us, as we go through these, I want us to keep in mind 1 Corinthians chapter 12. So we're going to read, it's a bit of a long read, but I know you'll bear with me. We're going to start in verse 12, and if you'll read with me all the way to verse 26, okay? For even as the body is one and yet has many members, and all the members of the body, though they are many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I'm not a hand, I'm not part of the body, it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. And if the ear says, because I'm not an eye, I'm not a part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed the members, each one of them, in the body just as he desired. If they were all one member, where would the body be? But now there are many members, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, or again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, it is much truer that the members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we deem less honorable, on these we bestow more abundant honor. And our less presentable members become much more presentable, whereas our more presentable members have no need of it. But God has so composed the body, giving more abundant honor to that member which lacked, so that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. The next section of our lesson is going to be focused straight out of verses 22 through 24. Okay? So keep that in mind. So I wanted to talk about what some of these cups of cold water are going to look like. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but I want us to keep some things in mind here. Perhaps a cup of cold water is greeting people at the door, like the Patricks do. Perhaps it's being hospitable, like Susie and the Myroses. The Myroses have, they put me up, and Susie has graciously put my sister up. My sister is going to be coming on Friday. She's going to be living here for a little while, trying to get established here in Kansas City. And Susie was kind enough to open up her home to my sister. Or encouraging parents. Just the other day, I had to take Bo out, and I spanked him on the way out the door. And Verla stopped me after services and said, "I appreciate that you're trying really hard." And that meant a lot to me. I didn't feel like I was doing that great of a job. And Verla helped. Perhaps it's organizing gatherings. I seem to keep getting Abby's emails about having get-togethers. Sometimes it's the ladies' night, sometimes it's other things. Perhaps it might look like building a very impressive Triceratops for our VBS, like Curtis did. Giving the kids something much more impressive to see, feel like they're a part of. Or perhaps Colleen gave me some clothes in order to help my appearance while I'm up here in front of you. These are what some of the cups of cold water look like. And some of you might think, I do some of those things. Yes, you do. It's not to be mentioned. It's to serve in the kingdom. Sometimes when we get to look at what's going on around us, sometimes we don't get thank yous for what we do. Sometimes the cup of cold water is not followed by a thank you. But it's no less unnoticed. It's not unnoticed in the eyes of God. God is watching. When He sees us serving each other, greeting people at the door, doesn't that sound an awful lot like a member of the body that has little to do with the body? Isn't that sometimes kind of how we think about something like that? Well, what's the point of greeting people at the door? Do I really need to do that? And yet it means so much to people that as they come in, there's someone there to tell them hello and to tell them, I see that you're here and I appreciate your presence. It may not seem like much to us, but that doesn't mean that's nothing. Or how about sometimes we don't think about how we're being hospitable? It could just be that you're helping someone out. One of the most beautiful things that I've seen in a while was when I got the text last night about the fire and about Clint and June. David had in that text, "Don't worry, multiple families have already offered their homes to Clint and June." And I thought that was incredible. I mean, I had just heard about it. And already there were people saying they can stay with us. When we realize how important these seemingly small things are, then it should mean so much more to us. The church is a body made of what's called irreducible complexity. If you don't know that term, that means it's a system where if you remove just one part, the system no longer works. The eye is an incredible example of this. I'm sure that Steve could tell me just how many there are, but I was trying to teach my students this one time in a science class, and we were talking about everything it takes for the eye to function, and we came up with 26 different things that have to be in place for an eye to work properly. Not work well, just work properly. And if you take just one of those things away, suddenly the eye no longer works. Something that you might think is incredibly small, maybe even pointless. And yet when it's removed, the whole body is going to feel that. And what we start to think in our mind is, well, I'm unnoticeable. Once you start to think that you are unnoticeable, you are forgetting whose eye you are under. You are not unnoticeable to God. Offering ourselves to the true service of the church, it doesn't really have to do with these. Those are kinds of service. The elders are serving the church. The deacons are serving the church. Those who assist in the worship are serving the church. But somehow we seem to think that's all there is to it. Well, if I can't be up there, then I can't do anything. And that's the biggest justification to do diddly squat I've ever heard. That's not what this life is about. This life is meant to give out cups of cold water. You might do things and your name is not up here, and I apologize for that. But sometimes, maybe most of the time, we should be out there doing things whether anybody's noticing them or not. If you think I do those things, keep doing them. If you think, I don't really do any of those things, why don't you start? I don't think the position of door greeter is only for the Patricks. I think they can share in that responsibility, right? I don't think encouraging us young parents is only Miss Verla's job. And I know there are other people that have shown encouragement to me, and I appreciate that. But let's stop and think about, what more can I do? What seemingly little thing can I do? Do you clean up your pew as you leave? If you see a little piece of trash on the ground, do you pick it up? I mean, these things feel so silly, don't they? And yet they can go a long way to truly serving in the church. Jesus says those that can be entrusted with little can then be entrusted with much. When we work to give just cups of cold water, then what happens after that? Maybe there's something more that I could do. Surely a cup of cold water is not the only thing that you could do. Surely there is more to be done. And I'm sure you could go to the elders or the deacons and say, what more needs doing? And they will have a list. Here's all the things that you can do to help out, to show service. Have you made a decision to take some food to Clint and June? Have you thought about visiting one of the older members here that might have trouble getting out and around? Have you thought about going to visit them? Have you thought about going up to that person as they're trying to leave quickly, say, hey, I just wanted to stop you and say hello? Have you decided to do that? And here's the beautiful thing. This applies to all ages. Even my younger friends who are in high school or junior high, you can go up and say hello. The old people aren't going to bite hard. You can say hello. You can say, I'm glad to see you. You can ask them how they're doing and listen to their response. You can show them that they mean something to you because we're all part of this body. Those are little things that go a long way. And God made them that way. God knew how to encourage service in His church. He knew that when we do the small things, it will encourage us to do larger things in the end. Don't be caught up in seeing me up here and thinking that this is how you serve the church. This is the only way to serve the church. This is but one of uncountable ways to serve the church. And never forget that. Doesn't mean a lot to try to serve the church if you're not part of it. So, this song is first and foremost to you if you're not part of the church. Come to Jesus today. If you already are a part of the church, then it's perhaps time to reevaluate your position in the body. Not as in to say, maybe I should go or stay, but how to better the body. Am I a stubbed toe? Or am I one that's working? Am I going to give this body appendicitis, or am I going to continue to do my job? These things are all important. And if you're part of the body, then you've already come to Jesus, but now He's looking and saying, how are you going to better the body? And if you need help figuring that out, then this moment is also yours as we stand and as we sing.